Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now, before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions, as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well. This is another episode of the Daily Tottenham Transfer News Show. My name is Chris Cowlin, and today I'll be joined by Gareth McGuinness. We'll be covering all of the latest Spurs news, rumours and reports. Of course, it is day 15 of this winter window. There is 18 days left. Of course, Spurs have got one signing over the line, Conor Gallagher. We wait the arrival of Sousa, and of course, we wait the official confirmation on that signing of the 19-year-old Brazilian left-back from Santos. Now, we are live on YouTube, Facebook and X. Please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling about the transfer window so far, and let us know how you are feeling ahead of the West Ham game on Saturday as well. But if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, press the like button, comment below, and turn on that notification bell so YouTube informs you every single time we go live and upload a video, and there is a lot of content going out right now. Gareth, good evening to you. How are you?
All good, Chris. I think with the break from the Premier League predictions, it feels like I haven't spoken to you for about a fortnight, but I know that's going to change very soon. The Premier League is back this weekend, so we'll be doing a show, of course. But not or not. Look, I think Conor Gallagher's given the fan base a lift, and it's definitely given me a lift. Of course, I'm going to the game on Saturday against West Ham, so it's something different. It seems like doom and gloom, but I think always having a new player on, and I think the majority of the fan base, and I know we'll speak about them, are excited and happy with the signing. So there is a bit of positivity in there.
Let's start with that, Gareth, before we move on to the other rumours and reports today. Let's start with Conor Gallagher, because I think you've said those magic words. I was going to say exactly the same thing. It's given everyone a lift. I know there are some negative comments about this signing, but I think this is a very, very good, solid signing for Spurs. Lots of physicality in the centre of midfield, box-to-box midfielder, very good defensively and offensively. I think that he is going to offer a lot. Leadership qualities as well. His stats really do stack up, and he looks a very solid player and an improvement for Spurs. What do you make of this signing?
Well, Chris, you've hit the nail in the head there of all his qualities and what he'll bring to the group. But I think the most important thing about Conor Gallagher is he's got a point to prove. It was forced out of Chelsea. He'll come back with that attitude of wanting to prove Chelsea and everybody wrong. And of course, Mauricio Pochettino was a massive admirer. And we know Pochettino's eye for a player, and what he was able to achieve with some of the players he signed at Tottenham and the players that were already there. So, it's a first class signing, and I think we've for the money that's been reported, 40 million euros, roughly 34.7 million. I think in this market that could be considered an absolute steal. Yeah. It's a difficult window, as we know, January. It's never easy to bring in top players or players that can instantly improve. And a lot of times we say when we sign players, we need to give them time to settle in. And of course, that will be if they settle in with these new players, but he knows the league. He's got loads of experience, and I don't want to put the curse on him, but his injury record across his career has been absolutely phenomenal. I know Dominic Solanke had a brilliant time at Bournemouth, but he did have injury problems in the past before Bournemouth, whereas Conor Gallagher's been pretty much fit his entire career. As you say, Mr. Reliable, and I think he'll have a real bite and wanting to prove, especially Chelsea, wrong. And look, I know there's been some negative comments about his Chelsea connections, but I think this will be the spur. They prove everyone at Cobham wrong, and that you could well see this being possibly one of the signings of the window. He comes straight into the team for me on Saturday. I'm sure and we trained today, and I'm sure he'll train. I'm sure he'll be ready for Saturday. So very positive signing, Chris. But it is a drop in the ocean for what we need.
Now, Conor Gallagher was in training at Hotspur Way today. Thomas Frank, in his press conference ahead of the West Ham game, said, "I'm thinking he can step straight into this team and help us straight away." And you and I have said exactly that, Gareth. There's been 3 official announcements from Tottenham Hotspur Football Club today. Lots of activity going on at the club right now. Lots of changes in terms of board level, in the dugout, of course, on the pitch. Lots of changes. I feel like I've been saying this for years. Certainly, the 2 years that Ange Postecoglou was here, a lot of change throughout the club, and there is a lot of change throughout the short time that Thomas Frank has been with us. I'm going to start with the very short one first of all, and it's another loan player. Damola Ajayi has joined League Two side Bromley on loan for the remainder of the 25-26 season, having been recalled from his loan spell at Doncaster Rovers. We've had a lot of changes of loans for players, Gareth, haven't we, so far in this January window in the opening 15 days?
Yeah, look, I mean, young players, there's always going to be a lot of movement. We loans. I know Ajayi, I think he had a decent start to the season wherever he was. I think he might have scored in the opening weekend of the season. I can't exactly. Was it Doncaster he was at?
Doncaster, yeah.
Yeah, Doncaster. I think he might have scored in his first game. We haven't really seen anything of him in a Spurs shirt, really, since that goal he scored in the Europa League. He's kind of burst onto the scene that night. I know we were in a bit of an injury crisis. Well, he's ready or not is another question, but it does get frustrating when you see the same players going on the same loans. I mean, a player that come on against Aston Villa, Dane Scarlett, it seems like he's been here forever. I know he's quite young still, but it almost seems like he's been here. I couldn't believe when I realised he was only 22, I think it was. It almost feels like he's been here such a long time, and he's never really had an opportunity to grasp that shirt. And look, it's Chris, over the years, it does seem that the young players' chances from the academy are dwindling. You think about the last 20 years, up until maybe 10 years ago, players always really got an opportunity. I think since Pochettino's left, those opportunities haven't really existed. And, obviously me having an Irish connection, Troy Parrott was one that was highly rated, never really got a snuff. I know he had injury problems. And you think of what he did for Ireland there to get them into the World Cup playoff, what he's doing for AZ Alkmaar, what he did previously before AZ Alkmaar in the Netherlands. And he looks like a real goal scorer. And if you think at the minute of Spurs' problems with strikers, Troy Parrott was maybe one that maybe we let go too early. And maybe he could have helped us. And maybe Scarlett could be another one if he doesn't get a sustained run of games. We're never really going to know if he is good enough, because in the little cameos that I've seen Scarlett, he's actually looked quite good. So it does beg the question of what do these players need to do to get an opportunity, because it was different when Harry Kane was here, Chris. You were never really going to get a run on the team, but we haven't really got that level of striker anymore. Of course, Solanke's been injured quite a lot this season. Richarlison's had his injury problems over the years and now injured again. Kolomoyani hasn't as flattered to deceive. So it'll be interesting to see if Scarlett or Linkshear, if he comes back into the picture, will these players get a run at some stage over the next 6 to 12 months? Because if there's ever a time for a young player to emerge in that forward area, you would think it would be now.
The next official statement from Tottenham, Gareth, on Thursday. We're delighted to welcome John Hatinka to the club as first-team assistant coach, joining Thomas Frank's coaching staff. John began his coaching career in 2016 following retirement as a player, working with Ajax's youth teams, and took interim charge of the Dutch Giants senior side in January 2023 and for the remainder of the season. Ahead of the following campaign, he joined West Ham United as first-team assistant before being appointed as Liverpool's assistant coach in July 2024, helping the Reds to the Premier League title last term. Most recently, he departed Merseyside and returned to Ajax to become head coach in May 2025. As a player, John made more than 400 club appearances for Ajax, Atletico Madrid, Everton, Fulham, Hertha Berlin. In addition, the former centre-back earned 87 caps for the Netherlands and represented his country at numerous major tournaments. Now, head coach Thomas Frank, on this appointment, he said, John is a great addition to our coaching staff. His ability, personality and character will add huge value both on and off the pitch. He has had an impressive playing career across Europe, including 5 years in the Premier League and with Dutch national team. As a former defender, that will be one of his main responsibilities on the training pitch, and he brings great coaching and management experiences from all levels of the game, which will really help us moving forward. What do you make of this appointment? Because, of course, we knew that there would be a change in the dugout alongside Thomas Frank, because, of course, Matt Wells left a couple of weeks ago to go to the MLS. What do you make of this appointment, Gareth?
Well, Chris, other than being a player in the Premier League when he was at Everton and obviously playing for the Dutch national team, I didn't really know too much about him coaching wise. But I remember him being at Liverpool last year. And funny enough, I've got some information on this actually. A lot of my friends, as I've said before, are Liverpool fans, and they're very much like me and you, obsessed with the club and kind of know everything about the club and what's happening inside and outside. And the rumours are that he was quite highly rated at Liverpool, which is why Ajax came in for him. It didn't work out at Ajax, but as you know, Chris, some number twos don't make great number ones, and some number ones that end up going to be a number two, maybe looking for a job, doesn't really work out. But from what I hear, the players really liked him at Liverpool, and he was heavily involved in the coaching. He was a very popular figure inside the dressing room. He had a heavy hand on what was happening on the pitch, and obviously his defensive qualities. Liverpool were actually a lot more solid last season. Liverpool then hired Giovanni van Bronckhorst, and that didn't work out. At Liverpool this season are a lot more susceptible to scoring, conceding goals. So him leaving Liverpool hasn't had a great effect on them. So that is one thing that we can take the positive from. One, he was very well liked. Two, he's got a fantastic personality and very good character about him. And three, he's got a lot of good qualities as a coach. So, because of that information Liverpool fans have given me, I think that's a really, really good appointment.
He didn't have a very good time at Ajax managing their first team. I think it was a 33% win record. What is it like, Gareth, from being the head coach and, the number one to then now the next season being a number two?
Well, I've had a bit of experience on this as well. I think some coaches are suited to just being a coach and just have been involved in being on the pitch, very heavy hand on the tactical side. But being a manager, of course, or the head coach, as they like to call it, but you're still the manager. The term head coach and manager now really is the head coach has to report to directors of football and heads of recruitment, and they make a joint decision on players.
Yeah, don't make that mistake. The head coach is the head coach, the manager is the manager.
That's it. So the manager days are kind of gone, aren't they? When you think about Sir Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, those types of managers, it's kind of always now head coach. And famously, over the last few weeks, we've heard Ruben Amorim say, "I am not the head coach. I want to be the manager." And that is mostly down now to recruitment. Because managers, you're responsible for recruitment, and in the modern day, head coaches are really there. They have a say on maybe who's coming on, but it's a committee making the decision on the transfer. So in terms of the management side, in terms of the footballing side of things, maybe Johnny Heitinga hasn't suited it, or maybe doesn't have enough experience to be that sort of lead coach in a role, and maybe he is more suited to be in, just slightly more in the background in terms of the decision making, but having a very big emphasis on the coaching side of things. And look, I've seen this before. A lot of the players tend to get on quite well with the number twos and the number threes because there's a bit more of a relationship can be there, because they're obviously working together more on the pitch because the manager's got so many more duties. But I think the players can maybe be a bit more relaxed around a number two or a number three, and maybe that's why he was so well liked at Liverpool. I mean, Mikel Arteta was one that apparently a lot of the players really liked him at Man City because he was a number two. But we've seen a different side of Arteta at Arsenal being a number one. He's a lot more fired up. He's a lot more aggressive. because he's solely responsible for the team and the results. Whereas the number two, you're at your manager's. You can do as much as you want in the background, but if the manager's struggling, you're out the door. So you can be doing really good things on the pitch, but if the team isn't getting results at the weekend, it doesn't matter what you're doing on the pitch. If the manager gets sacked, the backroom staff are sacked as well. So it'll be interesting to see Johnny Heitinga and what differences we'll notice between the previous setup and Johnny Heitinga over the next number of weeks. But all I can say is all the Spurs fans that are watching, Liverpool fans were really upset when he left. They're really upset with how things are going this year. And a lot of Liverpool fans reached out to me today and says that's a top appointment, bringing him on.
I've got to admit, Gareth, with his vast experience, both at club level and international level, I think that he's going to bring a lot to Tottenham. And this could be a really good appointment to help Thomas Frank along the way, particularly with the pressure that he's under at the moment. Now, let me go to a report from Team Talk. They're stating that Tottenham have been offered the chance to sign Karim Adeyemi with Borussia Dortmund believed to value the forward at around £60 million this month in the window. Borussia Dortmund, by the way, they're sitting second in the Bundesliga. Of course, we play them on Tuesday evening in the Champions League. They've only lost one game in the Bundesliga all season behind Bayern Munich, who are unbeaten right now. Before I ask you about him and forward players, Gareth, I'm going to read out now Thomas Frank on team news ahead of the West Ham game on Saturday. Richarlison, unfortunately, got a hamstring injury, which will keep him out for up to 7 weeks. Lucas Bergvall could be available. Hopefully, he will be available Saturday. And this is Thomas Frank talking, by the way. Basuma is back, so he is available as well. Both Destiny Udogie and Dom Solanke are close to finishing a good week of training, so they are a bit closer. Both will be involved and available at the West Ham game, but they are closer to playing even more minutes, so that is positive. They look good, both of them. How important is it that Spurs sign a forward player, a player that can play in the final third, or even better still, Gareth, a finisher, a centre forward, because this is bad news again for Tottenham on the injury front. Richarlison out for 7 weeks. I feel like so many people have said it. Thomas Frank has said it in the last few weeks. The one positive about this season is Richarlison keeping fit. He's been fit all season, and then of course, sod's law, isn't it? It's just our luck.
Well, look, Richarlison's record told you he was going to get injured at some stage. He's just a player that can't go through a season without an injury. And of course, this is another significant injury. We're talking missing up to 2 months. And he is our top goal scorer this season, despite what fans say about him. He does look the most likely player on the pitch to score for us. He does upset defenders, and he can be a bit of a pantomime villain. And you've seen that game when he come on against Liverpool, even when we had 10 men and then 9 men, he was still causing problems. So he is going to be a loss because Dominic Solanke is going to take time to get up to speed. Kolomuani, I just haven't seen enough from him. I thought he had a decent start, and I kind of thought the goals would come. But I think over recent weeks, I don't know if he will score again. I get that feeling. He doesn't look like he's going to score anytime soon. So that's a big worry. Matisse Tell, there's talk that he wants to play as a striker. Maybe he'll get an opportunity to play through the middle. But I agree with you. I think this is a priority position. It doesn't necessarily have to be a striker, because there's a lot of wide forwards, as they call them now, can score a lot of goals from playing off the left or playing off the right. So as long as there's somebody that can come in and score goals, it doesn't really matter if it's off the left, off the right, or through the middle for me. But I do think when you look at the squad, Chris, obviously we know this is a very difficult window. I think you mentioned the manager being under pressure. I think it was good today for Thomas Frank that when Johnny Heitinga was on the two of them were in the picture together, because I seen West Ham announced a new first team coach and Nuno wasn't in that picture. So maybe that tells you that Thomas Frank, they are backing him and they're going to give him time. Yeah. But look, at the end of the day, if the form doesn't improve in the next, if you think about the next 2 games in the league, the run of games after that, after West Ham and Burnley, are very, very tough. So if that form doesn't improve, it's going to be very difficult to see how Thomas Frank stays here, beyond this season. So there is going to be a bit of thinking on that. But it's got to be priority position. You look at the defence at the minute. We've still got players in the defence you think could get on the our teams, like Romero, Van de Ven. Jed Spence has had a decent season for me. Udogie, when he comes back, if he can stay fit's a good player. Pedro Porro's a decent player. There's players in midfield like Bergville, like Sarr, who are going to improve, and they're good young players. But you look at that forward area at the minute, and other than Xavi Simons, who's not really, he's an attacking midfielder. You look at some of those and think, are they good enough for this level we want to be at? Good goal from Motorbear against Aston Villa, but it's too few and far between. Matisse Tell's goals have been patchy, scores one and don't score for a few months, although maybe hasn't had enough opportunities. And the striking options, Richarlison, I think if there was a better striker at the club and was fit, like a Solanke, maybe he would have been moved on in recent windows. So I think that area of the pitch has got to be the most significantly invested part of the squad in the summer. Wide forwards and strikers that can really change your season. And look, we've seen this already this season with Man United, Chris, and I know they're going through a bit of a bad patch now, but Man United's issues last year were scoring goals. This year they're scoring lots of goals because they've brought in Mbeumo and brought in Cunha, who are wide forwards that can score goals. And you look at United now and they score a lot more goals than they did last season, and they're more of a threat than what we would have faced last year in the Europa League final. So I think Spurs have got to get back to that. In recent years, it's always been we've a team that can score a lot of goals, but that's dried up under Thomas Frank. We haven't been that type of team that's scoring a lot of goals. And if you look at the goals we have scored, most of them are from set pieces.
Adeyemi, who plays for Borussia Dortmund, German international, 11 caps, 1 goal. He's played for Dortmund. This is his 4th season, 87 appearances in the Bundesliga, 20 goals. And in all competitions, 131 appearances, 32 goals. Before that, he played for Red Bull Salzburg. Gareth, what do you know about him? Would he be a good fit for Tottenham? This is a player that can play both as a winger and a forward.
I don't watch the Bundesliga regularly, but I do watch the Champions League quite a lot, and Dortmund be on most seasons in the Champions League, so I have seen him play quite a lot of games. For me, Chris, he's another player of similar to what we have, very inconsistent, has his great games, but doesn't have too many of them in a row. For the money that Dortmund are looking for, or what's being reported, I know this is, it's not an overly, it's not like hot news at the minute. It's just one of those links. How much is in it, I don't know. But for me, I think we need somebody a bit more consistent and a bit more reliable. I think he did have one great season a couple of years ago when Dortmund got to the final of the Champions League. They were beat by Real Madrid. I think he had a very good season that year. But, Chris, I think we have to be very careful. This Bundesliga has a reputation for coming up with these big names, and they're playing brilliant out in Germany, and they come to the English League and they struggle. 2 classic cases this year, 3 would be Wirtz at Liverpool, Šeško at Man United, and Xavi Simons at Spurs. You couldn't really say at the moment any of those 3 have been a success so far. I think we're seeing butts from Xavi Simons recently. Thought that second half against Aston Villa was very, very good. There's definitely a player there, but it is quite funny how the players that come from the German league to England find it quite difficult sometimes. And the players that leave England, they go to Germany, find it quite easy. You think about Harry Kane, he's breaking even more records than he was here in England in terms of how many goals he scored in a season. Liverpool fans are ranting and raving about Luis Diaz. Why did we let him go? He's wrapping up for Bayern Munich as well. He wasn't scoring that many over in England. So I do think the standard out there is nowhere near the level of the Premier League. It's, as you said, Borussia Dortmund have lost 1 game all season and they're second. Look at some of the teams that are sitting second or third in the Premier League. They've lost a lot more than that. And it seems to be in the Premier League, anybody can beat anybody at the minute. Whereas in the German league, you can kind of handpick your favourites every week. And the likes of the Dortmunds and the Bayern Munichs usually won most of their games. So I'm not so certain if the Bundesliga is a good barometer, the success in the Premier League.
Gareth, you mentioned Tell a couple of minutes ago. What would be best for the player himself and what would be best for the football club? Because surely when we've got the injuries like we have in the final third right now, and if we don't go out in this market and spend on real quality players, surely Tell must stay, because even the likes of Fabrizio Romano have stated that FC Paris want him to get a loan. Tell has ambitions of the World Cup in the summer. I asked Josh this yesterday, and I'll ask you the same question. If Tell did go out on loan and have a very successful loan, What's the chances of him actually getting in the France squad anyway for the World Cup?
I was just about to say that no matter where he's playing football, the French national squad, especially in that attacking area, the competition is fierce. I don't think he's on that level of the competition and that French national team. We're talking about one of the countries that are going to be one of the favourites for the World Cup. And there's a lot of quality players in that area. You know, likes of Mbappe, Doué, Dembele. You wouldn't put Tel on that level. So it's going to be very difficult for him, I think, as you say, wherever he goes. If I'm Matisse Tel, I'm knocking on the manager's door now and I'm saying, look, there's a lot of injuries here. Am I going to get a run of games in the team between now and the end of the season? And this is his chance really to prove that, one, he can be good enough for Spurs, and two, if he's good enough for the Premier League, because he came with a good reputation, you know, of a good young player that scored some great goals in the Bundesliga, albeit very inconsistent. But we haven't really seen any of that sort of potential here. He scored a few goals, but none that's made you go, wow, oh my God. We haven't really seen one or two magic moments, and he's been here now for a year. So, yes, he can point to not having that many opportunities, but I would be surprised if he left on loan based on our problems at the moment. And I think Thomas Frank will give him an opportunity, and I think his best opportunity to get under the French national team is with Spurs. I don't think going to Paris FC and scoring loads of goals for them would sort of rattle any fellers or the likes of the French manager taking up notice of him. I think if he starts scoring goals in the Premier League, he maybe gets himself in the conversation. So personally, I'd love Tel to stay and have a great second half of the season, but I've yet to be convinced that he's all it was sold to be.
On Wednesday, of course, it was officially announced by Tottenham that Fabio Paratici would be leaving after the transfer window ends 7 p.m. on the 2nd of Feb. He will be going to Fiorentina. Now, another official statement released by the club today, Gareth. Tottenham Hotspur is pleased to announce the appointment of Carlos Rafi Morrison as Director of Football Operations, a newly created role as part of the club's approach to build a modern, high-performance football structure to drive long-term success. He joins from the City Football Group, where he spent more than a decade in senior roles across a global football model, most recently playing a central role in player transactions as Director of Football Transactions. His appointment is part of a sustained focus on strengthening the foundations that support performance on the pitch, which include the appointment of Dan Lewington as performance director, who will join Tottenham Hotspur Football Club next month, and increased investment into our academy to enhance the pipeline of talent ready for the men's first team. He will lead our football administration, player care and training ground operations, and join the club's executive leadership team. A key part of his role will be overseeing the women's football team as well, where he will continue to drive a renewed focus and ambition for the Tottenham Hotspur women. Let me just ask you, I know you, I don't know whether you followed the Tottenham women or not, but they've had a fantastic transfer window so far in January. Martin Ho, I speak to on a weekly basis. He is a great guy, a top coach, and he is doing a fantastic job there. They are level on points with rivals Arsenal. Arsenal are sitting in third at the moment in a Champions League spot. Spurs are fourth, level on points. It's just a matter of goal difference. And as I said, they're doing a great job there. A huge turnaround from what it was like last season. But more changes at board and management level, Gareth. And I feel, like I said at the start, I feel like I talk about this a lot, the amount of changes that we've had at board and management level in recent months, you know, even whilst Thomas Frank has been at the football club. What do you make of all this?
I think it's natural when there is a new change of direction. I know you could say it's not a change of ownership, but what we're being told is that, you know, Joe Lewis has stepped back and it's the Lewis family now that are pushing on. So naturally, when, you know, if there is a new, you know, if a club had a takeover, there's usually a lot of change involving management. Usually the manager's the first to go. You know, they might have a different football operation set up. So director of football, head of recruitment, maybe director of football operations, like we're seeing. So you could maybe, I think what the club are trying to put out there, that this is very much a new direction, even though a lot of the fans see it as very much the same ownership. They're trying to printed as, no, it's very much a different direction under the same surname, but different people running it. So I think maybe we shouldn't be too surprised. I think we all know as fans there needs to be change. One trophy in 17 years is not good enough for this club. The words that keep being published with every statement that we hear is sustained football success. That is the three key words that keep coming up. So again, they're trying to put it to the fans that we're now ready to kick on, and it's not going to be, yes, there's always going to be an eye on commercial and trying to make money and make profit. Of course, every business is, but we are here now to start making rumbles and waves on the football side of the operations. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the near future. But I think they expected it to be a better season this year than it was last year. And at the moment, it's been pretty, pretty poor. So they're going to come under pressure if the results don't improve. And it seems like this director of football operations and these different new titles, it's very hard to keep up with it all. It always seems like there's somebody else getting put on place and you're not really sure what their role is. I mean, that director of football operations, I'm hearing he has to report to Johan Langer. So, I don't understand that at all. But he seems to be the one that, in amidst all the change, he's the one that stayed. And I know a lot of Tottenham fans are questioning, his role in the recruitment, because if you look at Aston Villa's recruitment since he left and priority when he was there, it's chalk and cheese. Our recruitment, I think, leaves a lot to be desired on the money that's been spent and his time here so far.
I don't think the football club can be blamed for Fabio Paratici leaving, because, of course, he's leaving for personal reasons. And although only a couple of months ago we were told by Vinay Venkateshan that this was a good move, that Tottenham were going to have two sporting directors. So it'll be interesting to see what will be said, or indeed what won't be said about that, or whether a new sporting director will come in to help Johan Langer.
Well, you mentioned personal reasons, and that was the official statement, but there was rumbles that when Spurs were hiring a new manager, he didn't think that Thomas Frank was the right fit. And obviously, if he's got opinions on the players that can be brought in, and Johan Langer has a different vision, then that was never going to work. So maybe the personal reasons are just because he wasn't happy here.
No, it's definitely personal reasons, Gareth.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are 5 key principles that fans have the right to expect from the current and future owners. This is a piece from the Tottenham Hotspur, or the official Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. And this is what they've put to the club. The 5 principles are: commit to winning, attract and retain talent, future-proof success, lead with integrity, and the last one is fans first. I've been saying on a number of media interviews that I've been doing recently that you just want to see Spurs learning from their mistakes that we've made in the past. I know there have been a lot of personnel changes, including Daniel Levy, Donna Cullen, etc. And a lot of new people have come into the club, including Vinay Venkateshan that I mentioned there. But you would hope, Gareth, that the club would learn from previous mistakes and recruitment would be a lot better. And I suppose the proof in the pudding, which we've all said, and I know there has been a lot of pressure on the club as well, in this January transfer window so far. But I think we all can see and understand and be very sensible and level-headed about it, that in a January transfer window, it is very difficult. However, deals can be done. When you look at a player like Conor Gallagher moving in a January transfer window, you saw Antoine Semenyo, of that quality, moving to Manchester City in a January transfer window. But I suppose the real proof of the ambition of the football club and the change, if there is one, huge change if there is one, is going to be in the summer window.
I think you're spot on, Chris. I don't know whether the exit of the FA Cup will change transfer business, because we're only in 2 competitions now. There's players to come back from injury. The squad could become quite bloated if we were to go out and sign 3 or 4 players and then players return from injury. I know fans we always think about the next game. The football club do have to have a balancing act. There's only so many players we can register as well. Yep. You think about these 2 games in the Champions League are going to be very, very critical in terms of our progression on it. Where we can qualify for the top 8 and avoid games in February. And that gives us a good opportunity to really focus on the league in February, because there is some tough games in February in the league, as we pointed out, Chris. And if you think if we end up in those playoffs, we're going to have two very big games sandwiched in between all those top opponents in the Premier League. But we're obviously out of the Carabao Cup. We're out of the FA Cup very early on. So my understanding of the FA Cup, which was changed last season, is there's basically no Premier League games getting played on the weekends of the FA Cup. So we're going to have a lot of free Saturdays and Sundays during this period. So having a bloated squad doesn't really make much sense between now and the summer. So I wonder, will the club keep their powder dry? Yes, bring in players like Conor Gallagher if they're available and can make an impact now. But, will there be better opportunities in the summer? That'll be the question they have to weigh up. And Chris, they can say what they want about Thomas Frank and they're backing him. But for me, if the form doesn't improve between now and May, I find it very difficult how he can remain in his post for the summer. And a new manager will have to be appointed. And yes, it'll be a head coach and not a manager, but he'll still want to have some sort of say in the players that are coming in. So there's a lot of questions at the moment and not enough answers in terms of who's going to be the manager next season. And it's very difficult to plan ahead when you don't know who the most important person at the football club is. The most important person at the football club for me is a manager, because we seen it when Pochettino was here. Yes, there wasn't a lot of money getting spent because of the stadium, but nobody really complained because we were winning every week and competing. Yes, we'd have wanted to spend more money, but because we were winning on the pitch, all the stuff off the pitch kind of gets swept to one side. Results will always dictate the feeling that the fans have towards the club. So winning games of football is the most important priority for this ownership.
Yeah, and it goes without saying, Saturday is an absolute must-win game. And, to be very frank about it, West Ham have been a very poor team this season under Nuno. And, it's fully expected that Spurs win and win well and perform extremely well. And as we mentioned at the very start, I feel a lot of the crowd will have a huge lift and will be really looking forward to seeing Conor Gallagher start in the centre of midfield. Let me ask you about Radu Dragusin. His agent has been speaking out again, as he does. It's standard. Do you expect him to leave on a permanent deal or even a loan with an obligation or an option to buy at the end of the season? Because the agent is really pushing for him to go to Roma. And as you rightly said, and as I've mentioned on the last couple of episodes, with us exiting the FA Cup and League Cup very early this season, and I might as well put in Kinski into that equation as well. We've also mentioned Tell, who is another player that, how much game time are these players going to get? Radu Dragusin, for instance, how much game time would he get if he stayed at Tottenham until the end of the season? Because when you think that, Thomas Frank, if he's still under pressure, which you would think, the games that we've got coming up, tough matches, no easy games in the Premier League or the Champions League. Van de Ven and Romero will always be that two. If one of them aren't playing for whatever reason, then it's going to be Kevin Danso. So from Radu's point of view, particularly this really tough time out that he's had, he'll be itching to get on the pitch. He needs game time.
He needs game time, but I would find it very uncomfortable to be going on the rest of the season with only three centre backs. Van de Ven's had injury problems in the past. If anything happens to him, you're down to two. And then you start having to play Palhinha at centre-back because you've let Dragusin go on loan. It's a difficult one for the club to weigh up because they do have to factor in the players' feelings in this. If he needs game time and if he's relying on players to get injured to get that game time, then that's not going to sit well with him. I suppose the club have to weigh it up. Someone's mentioned Ben Davis there, but Ben Davis has been playing at left-back recently.
How can you forget about Ben Davis?
Yeah, but in previous regimes, Ben Davis has been used more as a centre-back, but under Thomas Frank, it's been more of a left-back role. So whether he's viewed as someone that could step on there, I don't know. But, I would be surprised if the club value him. That is the only way I see him leaving on loan, because they want him to get games and come back next season. We're hearing a lot about Vuskovic, that he's a very talented player. So if he's coming into the picture next year, where does that leave Dragusin? So I think if he leaves, it'll be with a loan day obligation. I don't imagine he'll leave on a straight loan. What benefit is that for us?
The agent said that gladiators must be in Rome.
I think he's done more interviews than Dragousins played games.
That's like saying the Irish, like you, Gareth, have to be in the pub drinking a Guinness.
Well, that's up. And St. Patrick's
But that's true, isn't it?
Far away. Only a couple of months away, St. Patrick's Day.
Right. Lastly, Basuma. Basuma is available for the West Ham game. Do you think he's ever going to feature in a Spurs shirt again, or is this just Frank saying, "Look, he's back from AFCON. He is fit and available." But does Frank give him another chance? Do you think that Basuma could make the bench perhaps on Saturday?
It may make the bench based on the problems that we have, but I think he's burned his bridges with too many different managers at this club. And I think Thomas Frank is very much a manager that if you're not trustworthy, you're not getting anywhere near the team. So I would be surprised if he featured again, unless we're in a situation where we're really stuck for players and they kind of have to make him play. But the thing with Basuma, Chris, he's not going to change. He's old enough and experienced enough now. He's made the same mistakes over and over again. The litness, the laughing gas. You know, I don't see a way back from it, Spurs. I would imagine that. I would imagine that he's end up. I don't think an our club maybe will take him in January. He may well end up being stuck here to the summer, and then he leaves. But I think his Tottenham career's over, and it's such a shame because there's a very talented player on there, but he's just went down a completely different road. The player we seen at Brighton and for a brief spell under Ange Postecoglou to start, we haven't seen enough of Basuma, and it seems to be the personal problems and personal issues have dictated his football career, and it's a shame because it's a very, very talented player.
Gareth, before I go through my final couple of players that I wanted to cover, have you got any reports that you want to go through?
Well, I've had obviously a look over the few days, as we always do when we get a free minute. We're always looking on X to see, especially during these transfer windows, of any potential links and signings. And I think of the situation that we're in at the minute, we would love to see more signings. I did see a report from Miguel Delaney, and I think Alistair Gold has also spoke about this, that there is interest in, is it Alacucci from Monaco, who comes with, again, a lot of good reports about this player. We did see him play against Spurs in Monaco. Looks a very talented player, but again, he looks quite light. And will the Premier League suit him? You know, if we sign him now in January, will he settle in time? You know, that's
exactly what I said yesterday.
Yeah, is that a signing better for the summer? And again, it won't come cheap. So I really think in January, we should only be signing players that can come in and make a difference now. Otherwise, you know, you go and get them in the summer, a full pre-season, get them settled in. Because the problem with signing somebody like Alacucci in January, if he doesn't have a great start, then he's going to be under pressure next season because, you know, the jury will be out and fans will be, we need to see more. And maybe a player like that would benefit more from a summer. There was another one as well. Yeah, I think it might have been Ed Arns that said this, that Spurs are hoping to do one more piece of significant business in the transfer window. It'll be interesting to see where that area of the pitch is. Alacucci is obviously one that we really like. The other one that was heavily linked was Diamande, Chris. But again, it looks like doing a deal for him in January is virtually impossible. And I think there's a lot of our clubs interested in him for the summer, so he won't be easy to get. But again, we're talking huge money for a player that's very young, 19 years of age. I would be looking more than the Conor Gallagher route. Can we get a player, Premier League experience, European experience, on the door now and can give us a good 6 months and will also be here next season and can contribute?
It's funny, actually, Gareth, because when Brennan Johnson left and the fee that he left for, I said, where can you get players with that much Premier League experience, European experience, international, blah, blah, blah. And I tell you what, Spurs have proved me wrong to go out and get someone like Conor Gallagher in, with a really, really good fee. And I think it is a really good fee. And I don't think that is being talked about enough because what can you get for 40 million euros, the equivalent of just under 35 million pounds these days? What can you get? So I think that's excellent business. The last point of the show today, I was going to ask you about, Spurs have options on João Palhinha and Muani. Who would you sign? Would you sign both of them, one of them, or would you let both of these deals go and we start again in the summer?
I think with Palhinha, for the money as well that's involved, 25 million euros roughly, which again is buttons in this market. I think we've seen enough from him that he can be a very useful player. Do you see him as a number one starter in the team? No, but I think, Chris, if Spurs progress as a football club over the next few months, I think he's a player that'll be very useful in the squad. If Spurs are 2-0 up in a game, you bring him on for the last 20, 25 minutes, lock up at the back. He also gives everything as well, Chris, when he's on the pitch. He's not one of the players that you can accuse of down in tools or not being at his best. I think he lacks a little bit technically with the ball in terms of midfield. I mean, I don't want to say technical because, I mean, his acrobatic finishing is proved as unbelievable. But in terms of his passing forward, he's not that type of player. But if you look at someone like Rodri at Man City, obviously on a different level, but you can see with Man City that Rodri's probably not at the level he was a few seasons ago in terms of being maybe the best number 6 in the world. But he's kind of been used sporadically by Pep at the minute because he knows he's a player that can really come in, do a job, and lock down. So I think Palhinha, for the money that's being talked about, and what I've seen of him so far, I would definitely sign him as a good squad player. Colombiani, that'll be no surprise to you, Chris. I haven't seen enough. I think when you're actually questioning, will this player score another goal for Tottenham when you're a striker? I think that's a massive worry. So no, for me, I would let him go.
Yeah. Gareth, thank you so much for joining me. I will see you again tomorrow for the Premier League prediction show. Looking forward to that. Thanks so much for joining me, and thanks so much to everyone for watching and for listening. We will be back again tomorrow with another one of these daily Tottenham transfer news shows. So thanks so much for the support, and enjoy your weekend, and we will see you soon. Come on, you Spurs.